Welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management, a weekly conversation with area leaders about how to persevere during uncertain times. Now here's your host, Gary Shorman.
Welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times. And we have a real leadership story here that we're talking about involving three Western Kansas institutions. And our guest today on the program is the leader of one of those. It's Ben Schears, who is the president of Northwest Kansas Technical College. And Ben, good to have you on the program today.
Thank you, Gary. Glad to be here.
You know what, when we're doing this program, you think of all the things that are going on in Kansas. And one of those things that comes into play is where are we going over the next 10, 20, 30 years as the western part of our state? And depopulation is one of those. So working on ways to I say improve where Kansas is going in the future brings our conversation into play. Exciting news between you, Fort Hays State University, and the Northwest or the
NCK.
North Central Kansas, NCK Tech. They're doing a great job over there as well as you are, but you're combining with Fort Hays State to make this happen. Tell me what you're doing on your end.
Yeah, I tell you, what really kicked this off is we started to do some data research, looking at data, looking to see, we hear all this conversation in our communities about declining populations and businesses closing up and nobody coming in to fill those voids. So we started doing some data research, and as we looked at our service area, Northwest Tech has about a 17 county service area within this portion of the state. And we started to look, and what we found out was over the last 30 years, we have about 3,600 students less in the K-12 system today than we did 30 years ago. Well, those K-12 kids are the bread and butter that keeps institutions like ours alive. It's the heartbeat of what we do with students in this area. So, we started to look at that, and, that is the equivalent of about the size of the city of Goodland. And so, you kind of put that into context. That's like wiping the city of Goodland off the map in Western Kansas. And that's concerning, and so we look at it from that perspective. And really began just thinking about what can we do differently, right? I think that's the big thing, is trying to lead from the front and lean in and try to do something different to try to change the conversation in Western Kansas, and in particular within our service area. So Eric and I got together and we reached out to Dr. Mason at Fort Hays State University. And so, that's one of the pieces too that I always like to clarify, that this was not something where the university was looking to come in and take over two tech colleges. All three of us are coming from a position of strength on this, which is really an exciting piece, because oftentimes when you see either mergers or affiliations, and we're going to do an affiliation, usually one of the partners in that mix is in financial trouble, or they wait too long to get into partnerships, and then it just doesn't work very effectively. So we wanted to come at this from a position of strength. So we reached out to Dr. Mason and had a series of really good conversations with her. And then we decided, we need to do this. We need to do this not just for our institutions to ensure that 50 years from now, we're still open and doing what we need to do to service business and industry in the area. But also, more importantly, for being able to provide really good service and really good opportunities to our students and for our workforce partners.
And then when we talk about, being able to have an affiliation, that doesn't come about easily. Obviously, there's other people have to do that. The Board of Regents looked at your proposal, and I believe that said, this is a good idea. I'm paraphrasing what they put in there, but what did you have to do to get this through the Board of Regents?
So I'm a tech ed guy, always have been, product of tech ed here in Kansas. And so, I like to kind of equate what we did and what we are doing with the process of building a house, right? And so, the early conversations that Dr. Mason and President Burks and I had have really been building the exterior structure, right? Building the framework of the building. Just like building a house, you have to have inspectors come in at every step of the way and check it to make sure it works good and it's looking good. And so, I would equate that to kind of our conversations with each of our respective boards. Northwest Tech has a large board. We've got 24 board members for our college, which is really large. And so we work with those individuals to get the local approval done here on our campus, then the local approval done at NCK Tech with Mr. Burke's board. And then the final step in board approval was to take it to the Kansas Board of Regents. And then it's now off to the legislature. So you're right. It was Board of Regents was really excited about it. All three boards passed it unanimously, which was, I think, very telling of the groundwork and the framework we had laid out, and kind of the work we had done to put together what we think is a really, really good proposal.
Talk about your school. You're unique in the sense of you just were talking about a big basketball game that you won last night. And you actually, as most technical schools, in fact, NCK Tech doesn't have all of the same things that you have. You guys are unique. Tell us about your school.
Yeah, we like to, I tell you what, I kind of chuckle sometimes. Our mascot is the Mavericks. And I think that truly fits the culture of our institution. We are definitely an enigma in the higher ed space. There are 7 technical colleges in the state of Kansas, and of course 19 community colleges. And so we have a little bit of a foot in both worlds with having athletics. And so we have NJCAA athletics here at Northwest Tech, and we're a part, currently a member of the Jayhawk Conference. And so we're tied in with the 19 community colleges and Heston, which is a private 2-year college located in Heston. And so, yeah, we have a little bit of both, but it brings a lot of excitement to campus, and it's a unique way in which we can engage with the community in a different way than we have in the past.
And you have students actually live on campus as well. You have a whole on-campus facility along with online things as well.
Yeah, I think our big goal has always been to try to create a full college experience while students are at Northwest Tech. And so, yeah, we have the dorms on campus. We can sleep a little over 200, about 220 students on campus. And then we have the cafeteria services, student life activities and events, kind of what you would see at a normal community college or university, but on a much smaller scale. So,
well, Ben, I love the leadership aspect of this. And one of the questions some people are going to ask, and we're going to take a break and you can come back and answer this. But even I got into, there's a lot of acronyms, NCK Tech, Northwest Kansas Tech, how do you say I get it all straight? And what does that mean? Are there going to be any changes in that? Hold on to the answer to that. Tell us what's going to happen once this all takes place, because I think there's people going, how is this going to work? Are the Mavericks going to become Tigers? What's taking place? You have the answer, I think, coming up.
We'll see.
Okay, you're listening to Forward Ever, and thanks for being a part of this. It's brought to you by Worth Wealth Management. Back after this.
The most successful investors are those that can keep their emotions in check and take a longer-term view at what portfolios will be worth 3 to 5 years down the road. I'd say that's the most important in determining what investor outcomes are. Market corrections will continue in the future. We've seen many of them over the years, only to see equity prices rise higher, and that'll be the case in the future.
Worth Wealth Management, enhancing lives and strengthening families.
Welcome back to Forward Ever, leading in challenging times. Our guest is Ben Schears, who's the president of Northwest Kansas Tech. Ben, we went into the break talking about it's easy to talk about merging and affiliating, which is what you're doing, the affiliation part of it, until you actually get to game day and everybody gets on the court and away they go. What will be the changes you see at Northwest Kansas Tech? And are those going to be involved name changes? Are they going to involve mascot changes, anything like that?
Yeah, so I think, again, kind of like the analogy I used earlier with framing the house, some of the work that we're doing right now is really, again, continues to be that framework, and a lot of the finishing touches will come later. And that piece, the finished work that we're going to do with that, and I'll talk about some of that here in a minute, really is going to take beyond just the 3 presidents, right? We're going to need our employees to be a part of this. We're going to need community conversations, alumni being engaged, and most importantly, students. Pardon. And so, moving forward into this affiliation, and there is, and I want to make this just a quick note on this, the difference between an affiliation and a merger blends everything. Governance changes, your funding streams are all together. It's really, truly a fully integrated model. The affiliation that we're working with is modeled structurally similar to the one that was done with Wichita and WSU Tech in about 2018. And so the difference is our governance does change. Our board, which is our area board of control, becomes an advisory board in nature, but we'll still have some oversight functions here on campus, because you still need some local folks to be able to do things like sign checks and hold meetings and approve minutes and things like that. Eric Burks and I both will transition in our roles to report Dr. Mason. And so that chain of command changes. Instead of reporting directly to the board, we'll report to the university. But the employees at each of our institutions remain employees of the institution. And so we'll have a separate accreditation. And so we will be separately accredited under the Higher Learning Commission as a 2-year technical college. So we'll still go through that process like we always have. But I will tell you, I was ready to hand off the accreditation piece to the university. I'll promise you that. But we're keeping it. We're keeping it. And so branding, logo changes, I think those things are we've had really good discussions about that. I would anticipate that both institutions will probably change colors to match the university. The legal name change that we have in the affiliation bill that's in the legislature, headed to the legislature. Our name, for example, changes to Fort Hays State University, Northwest Kansas Technical College. Now, that won't be obviously the marketing name because that's quite a mouthful. And so some of those are the details that are still yet to come. We've talked about mascot and logo. And so a lot of that work is really going to happen once the ink is dry on signatures in the legislature and the governor's office. Once that wraps up, then we start building out. We have groups of small groups of employees that are kind of our engagement teams that will then tackle specific initiatives in order to get this up off the ground and really create some of those seamless pathways between the university and the 2-year colleges. So a lot of
what's it take to get through the legislature? What do you have to do there? Are there any holdups, or is everybody there excited about it? It would seem to me if everybody at each of the institutions is excited, the legislatures would be behind it as well.
Yeah, I think we have seen for the legislators we've talked to over the last few weeks and in advance of this have been very supportive of it. I think the reality is that folks are looking for a different answer in Western Kansas. And, I've said before that, I don't think folks should expect this as the silver bullet to turning around population decline and things like that. But do I think that we can do a better job of attracting business and industry into Western Kansas if there are 3 institutions working together proactively in economic development? Absolutely. And so, I think reactively in the past is kind of how higher education has operated to economic development, standing up programs after an industry is already there. But we need to be ahead of the game and we need to be early in the conversation. So I think legislators, that resonates really well with them. I think the biggest challenge, and I think this is a challenge for all of Western Kansas and rural Kansas in general, is really trying to share the vision, particularly with legislators from larger urban areas that maybe don't have that same kind of grasp on what life is like in a town of 3,500 and how important it is and what an economic role each of the 2-year colleges and the university plays in those local communities. And so, there's a lot of work ahead. I think, like I said, for the most part, legislators have been really pretty supportive, but it's a pretty rare thing when you get a bill passed completely through without some opposition somewhere. And so we're just hedging for that and building our coalition and building conversations and just talking about, again, all the benefits of doing this and coming at it early and coming at it from, a point of strength.
You mentioned coming at point of strength. What areas are you going to focus on that really will lay that out? Because there's so many different, back in the day when I went to school, there were really pathways to maybe 20, 30 different careers. Now it's thousands of careers and little niches. What are you going to focus on that will help Western Kansas?
We really looked at Western Kansas needs. And so I always say this too, North Central Kansas needs, right, with Eric's area. But we really tried to focus in on what are some of the big things that are occurring within this region that we need to really support from a business and industry development standpoint. And so we really took a look at, first and foremost, again, it's students. That's our North Star. What are the students needing? And then how does that mesh and how does that fit with what's needed within industry and business in here? So we really focused on first and foremost was creating seamless pathways from the 2-year colleges to the universities for those students that want that, right? We have some students that are wires and pliers kids that they want their degree or certificate and they're going to head to the workforce. And so programs, we have 3 big ones that we're focusing on early. One of those is agriculture, which is, of course, number one industry in our region. and then construction. All of our communities in Western Kansas and in North Central Kansas are in need of houses. We need affordable housing in our communities. So we're focusing on some pathways in construction. And then, probably one of the more obvious ones is healthcare. All of our rural hospitals and clinics are short staffed. They need people. And so then we're focused on the healthcare aspect too. So we're going to do this, Dr. Mason always likes to say this: best way to eat an elephant's at a piece at a time. And so that's what we're doing. We're going to take a look at these 3 programs first, and then we're going to look at other pathways, and really the goal being from start to finish, from the time a student's interested with us in high school through the programs, and then how do we transition them, most importantly, into Western Kansas employers.
Is there a timeline for this that you've put together with the rest of the group?
Yeah, I think once the legislation process really gets underway and starts to move, we're going to start standing up our implementation teams and get the ball rolling early, because in Wichita's case, this took 2 legislative sessions to get through. And so, if we encounter that same kind of a roadblock, there are still so many things we can begin doing together and working collaboratively in advance of anything that happens on the legislation. So, I'm going to anticipate what we've talked about over the next year really is trying to get a lot of groundwork laid between our institutions on those academic pathways that we talked about a few minutes ago, but then also looking at what are some of the back-end processes and services that we provide each collectively at our institutions that we can look to then collaborate on. So IT would be a really good one. Procurement would be another really good one. How do we leverage the buying power of 3 institutions versus just each of us individually? So, luck is with us. We're hoping to have everything put together and launch as one full umbrella in fall of 24. And so we're going to move quick, but we're going to move carefully and involve a whole lot of people in the process.
One thing I like about this, and we mentioned it starting the program, is the leadership aspect of how you take and look forward and saying, hey, we have to do things in a better, more efficient, maybe a more effective way. But I also see the part of it, you talk about Eric Burke, who's the president, you talk about Tisa Mason, who's the president of Fort Hays State, and you guys seem to get along pretty good too. It seems like you have a plan that is helpful when you have leaders that want to say, we have to do this better, you can make it happen. But it sounds to me like you like the others that are involved as well.
Yeah, I tell you what, the stars aligned. That's what I keep saying with regard to the timing on this. Again, I respect both of them immensely. And, this was something we started out, the very opening conversation, very first meeting we had. We just said, let's lay all the cards on the table, full transparency in this. What does each institution, how does each institution benefit in this kind of a partnership? And what are some of the challenges? Like, let's put everything on the table. And so we did. We spent some very, very intentional conversations early on, just being open and transparent, and quite frankly, getting to know each other. And so it was really good. I have really enjoyed this partnership and what has developed into a friendship with my 2 colleagues east of us.
And the benefit goes to these students that now have maybe a better, quicker, faster, more effective pathway to education and eventually getting into the workforce.
Yeah, and I'll give you one case in point. We had a young man that graduated this last year. His name is Dre, a young man from the Scott City area, as I recall. Came through our carpentry program, decided to stay in Goodland because he saw a market in the area for the carpentry work that he was doing. He had talked with me early on that his long-term goals are to build homes. He wants to do new construction. And so right now he's started his LLC while he was a student at the college, and he's out doing handyman work and doing remodeling in kitchens and bathrooms, and got his license and all those kinds of good things. But you take a kid like him and you look at that and you say, now what's possible for him if we were for him to have that opportunity, that pathway to go to the university, to their construction management program, where they learn the financial aspects, where they learn more of the business acumen, and they really get that full overarching, perspective on the construction world. You take a kid like that and you give him a little bit of extra education, a little extra opportunity in that process through a seamless transfer between our 2 institutions. And he's a regional building contractor. That's what he becomes. And, that's the ideal situation. And that's what we need. We need it all across the trades. We need every single spot we can get it in our region.
Well, Ben, thanks for taking time to join me and talk about this, because it's an exciting aspect and an exciting aspect for the future of Kansas as well. So appreciate what you've done. what the other institutions are working towards to make this all happen. I know it's not easy, and there's going to be some speed bumps in the whole process, but I appreciate the attitude you guys are going into it and look forward to see the next steps, because it's going to be exciting to watch this happen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Our guest today has been Ben Schears, who's president of Northwest Kansas Technical College, and working on a plan, forward ever thinking, to combine with NCK Tech and Fort Hays State University to grow education for the students in Western Kansas. Thanks for listening to our program today. It's brought to you by Worth Wealth Management, where you can live with confidence. I'm Gary Shorman.
Thanks for joining us for Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management. Join us right here next week for another episode with host Gary Shorman. Until then, remember to move forward ever, backward never.